Welcome to the History Channel. I'm Wilma and I will be hosting this episode. Today we are here to talk about the three aspects of the U.S. foreign policy in face of the communist expansion. We will be talking about the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, and the NATO formation. Tonight we will be inviting a few guests to join us. Here we welcome Ella from Greece, who has been affected by communist expansion.
Thank you. It is such an honor to be on the History Channel tonight.
For sure. Can you tell us what it was like living during this time and era?
Well, life was understandably difficult due to dictatorship, communist rebels, and communism itself. It made it very hard to live according to your own personal beliefs. And then to make matters worse, in February of 1947, the British government could no longer afford to keep its soldiers fighting communist rebels in Greece, and they left our country also.
Yeah. And when did these conditions improve?
I remember the day when we began to hope again. On March 12, 1947, President Truman declared a foreign policy of the U.S. to assist any country whose stability was threatened. Greece was definitely threatened by communism all along, so the U.S. committed to aiding both us and nearby Turkey.
And how did you see this policy coming into effect in assisting our country?
Well, we first saw it when President Truman sent $400 million in aid to take care of our problems. He maintained the policy to support free people who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities by outside pressures, therefore us and communism. Truman said that if Greece and Turkey did not receive the aid that they needed very urgently, they would inevitably fall to communism with great consequences throughout the region.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing your knowledge and personal experience with us. While helping Greece and Turkey with this policy, it also won support of the Republicans for President Truman. Following the Truman Doctrine in 1952, both countries, Greece and Turkey, joined NATO. It was a military defense that guarded their protection.
And it also mobilized American economic power to modernize and stabilize unstable regions without direct military intervention.
Yes, thank you very much, Ella. So this doctrine brought nation-building activities and modernization programs to the forefront of foreign policy. After the short break, we will discuss the Marshall Plan with a reporter from the street.
Thank you, Wilma. I'm here on the streets of Aldergrove, and I'm here to interview some people about the Marshall Plan. Oh, look, here's someone now. Hi, can I interview you about the Marshall Plan?
Yo, bro. What, TV?
Yeah, you're on TV.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Marshall Plan was?
Well, I can Google it.
No, that's okay. You didn't learn about this in school in history class?
Oh, no, I don't do that kind of stuff. No, I'm not in that.
Okay,
no.
So you know what, that's okay. Thank you very much for your time. We're just gonna go ask some other people. Hey, can I interview you?
Yeah, 1 second.
Hi. Good. I was wondering if I could interview you about the Marshall Plan. So do you know anything about the Marshall Plan?
Yeah. Wasn't that after World War II when a lot of Europe was like in ruins and stuff, and the only major power in the world was the United States. That was the only one. They came out of the world really out of the war really prosperous.
Yeah, and the United States assisted in helping areas in Europe a lot. Why was the Marshall Plan made?
Well, it was made so that they could rebuild the economies and the morale of the people in Western Europe. And George Marshall, I remember he said that the key to restoration of the political stability was in revitalizing national economies. So they went in to help the European economies. And he also thought that it would slow down the advances of communism, which was a really big deal right then, I think.
Do you know how this was all recovered?
Yeah, it was the Economic Cooperation Administration, I think, from the USA that spent $13 billion in aid to the European nations. It was mostly in food, staples, and fuel until 1951 when they stopped, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. The aid that the European countries received was boundless.
Yeah, I think by 1952 their economies had kind of recovered from the war and were growing. And then later on, the formation of the North Atlantic Alliance was created. And the economic prosperity led to the growing of the coal and steel industries, which really helped to create the European Union.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. I think that's all we need for today, but that was great that you knew all that.
You're very welcome. Yeah. God bless America!
Thank you very much, Wendy. And after the commercial break, we will be discussing NATO formation. Stay on your seats for more interesting facts. Welcome back. With our last interview, we talked about the Marshall Plan and how it led to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We now have a guest, Alfred, who will be talking about NATO.
Thank you very much. I am very excited to be here and happy to talk about such an interesting topic.
Thank you very much for coming. Would you care to share about your wealth of information about NATO?
Yes, I would love to. NATO was the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is an intergovernmental military alliance based on the North Atlantic Treaty, which was signed on April 4th, 1947, 2 days before my birthday. NATO was formed when threats against Greece and Germany by the Soviets lead to growing alarm throughout Western Europe. In response, 12 nations established NATO to coordinate the military defense of member nations against Soviet aggression. They agreed to consider an attack on one member as an attack on all.
Okay. And do you know anything about the headquarters and where they were held?
Oh, yes. NATO's headquarters are in Brussels and Belgium.
And why in the first years was NATO not much more than a political association?
Oh, just because they were a new group. However, the Korean War started the expansion of the NATO formation. The first NATO Secretary, General Lord Ismay, stated in 1949 that the organization's goal was to keep the Russians out, the Americans in, and the Germans down.
Correct. And doubts that led to the development of the independent French nuclear warning and the withdrawal of the French from NATO's military structure in 1966.
I agree. And what we also need to remember is that the creation of NATO began when the Berlin Blockade forced negotiations between Western Europe, Canada, and the United States.
Wow, I wasn't even aware of the beginning. What else did you know about the NATO formation?
Yes. I've studied U.S. foreign policy for many years. Anyways, what we need to remember is that the purpose of the NATO was to provide stability and freedom to its members through collective security. NATO provided strong military forces to balance the threat from the Soviet Union.
And I believe that the United States and Canada were expected to maintain force in Europe as their commitment to Western security.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your information that you can share with us today on History Channel 209. It has been a pleasure to meet you.
You're welcome, ma'am, and have a nice evening.
And that is all for today. If you wish to talk to our channel, we are more than willing to let you share your knowledge with our station. Just go to www.historychannel209.com.